Donald Rumsfeld gave a speech on September 10th, and most people remember him talking about the missing money. There was a lot of things he talked about.
Your defense, Donald Rumsfeld.
So that general, I think he was a general, I'm not quite sure what he was. He introduces Rumsfeld. Rumsfeld's very relaxed. You got to remember, this is back in the day when theater was presented to you and you thought this was normal. You've got a guy, they've set up this elaborate stage with a grand backdrop, the coloring, the flags. This particular introducer has his podium over here with them, and Rumsfeld's podium is all the way over here, a sense of power and above everyone else. He's relaxed. He's not stiff. He's given appropriate eye contact. You know, being in front of people in general does give a certain amount of stress, especially to certain personalities. Some people are very comfortable with it, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Some people, they get used to it. And I think Rumsfeld's pretty much at the point in his life, for as long as he's been doing it, that he's very comfortable with all the theatrics.
Aldrich, Service Secretaries, distinguished officials of the Department of Defense, General Myers, thank you very much for those kind words.
Not stiff, gives appropriate eye contact, very relaxed with whatever he's fiddling with, as if he's in a little dining room media, like they're having dinner together.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy, not the people, but the processes. Not the civilians, but the systems. Not the men and women in uniform, but the uniformity of thought. And
now, I apologize of whoever decided to screen capture and upload it to YouTube. That is not me.
Action that we too often impose on them. In this building, despite the era of scarce resources, taxed by mounting threats, money disappears into duplicative duties, bloated bureaucracy, not because of greed, but gridlock. Innovation is stifled not by ill intent, but by institutional inertia. Just as we must transform America's military capability to meet changing threats, we must transform the way the department works and what it works on. We must build a department where each of the dedicated people here can apply their immense talents to defend America, where they have the resources, information, and freedom to perform. Our challenge is to transform not just the way we deter and defend, but the way we conduct our daily business. Let's make no mistake. The modernization of the Department of Defense is a matter of some urgency. In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death, ultimately, every American's. A new idea ignored may be the next threat overlooked. A person employed in a redundant task is one who could be countering terrorism or nuclear proliferation. Every dollar squandered on waste is one denied to the warfighter. That's why we're here today, challenging us all to wage an all-out campaign to shift Pentagon's resources from bureaucracy to the battlefield, from tail to the tooth. We know the adversary, we know the threat.
All right, so as you're listening to him, and he has dressed this up such prettily, prettily, is that even a word? He's talking about the departments, and he's advocating for upgrading the Pentagon because it'll bring freedom. I also want you to note the difference between our bureaucrats today versus bureaucrats back then and the way they spoke, the confidence, much more refined in the past than it is today. Time is time today, is time tomorrow. Definitely straight out of Idiocracy. And also remember, as he's giving this speech, this is the day before September 11th. And we know what happened after that.
And with the same firmness of purpose that any effort against a determined adversary demands, we must get at it and stay at it. Some might ask, how in the world could the Secretary of Defense attack the Pentagon in front of its people? To them I reply, I have no desire to attack the Pentagon. I want to liberate it.
Oh, how could you attack the Pentagon? And what does he do? He grabs that podium for stability and strength. And then when he says, I don't want to attack it, he brings his arms in, comes close to himself. I want to liberate it. You see the shift in the body, the stress. Say, oh, wow. So translate it to today, because we all know what happened. I don't want to attack it. Stability. I'm standing on that. I don't want to. But the body's going, I'm going to have to. The mouth says, I want to liberate it. Stress. You know there's conflict in there. The mind knows. That's why you see the stress come out. There's conflict in that word, liberate.
We need to save it from itself. The men and women of this department, civilians and militaries, are our allies, not our enemies. They too are fed up with bureaucracy. They too live with frustrations. I hear it every day.
Now you've seen him grab his stability, that podium. And he's probably really drawing strength from the circle that he speaks with. Because I am sure he doesn't have those liberal conversations with everyone in the Pentagon. I mean, if he did, he wouldn't be speaking this way.
And I'll bet $1 to a dime that they too want to fix it. In fact, I bet they even know how to fix it. And if asked, we'll get about the task of fixing it. And I'm asking. They know the taxpayers deserve better. Every dollar we spend was entrusted to us by a taxpayer who earned it by creating something of value with sweat and skill. A cashier in Chicago, a waitress in San Francisco. An average American family works an entire year to generate $6,000 in income taxes. Here we spill many times that amount every hour by duplication and by inattention. That's wrong. It's wrong because national defense depends on public trust, and trust in turn hinges on respect for the hardworking people of America and the tax dollars they earn. We need to respect them and their efforts. Waste drains resources from training and tanks, from infrastructure and intelligence, from helicopters and housing. Outdated systems crush ideas that could save a life. Redundant processes prevent us from adapting to evolving threats with the speed and agility that today's world demands.
Now he brings his arms in much closer and together on redundancy. Now the idea of redundancy, at least how I understood it as an American in government, is that if you wanted something, you had to fill out a little requisition request and give it to somebody else. And that somebody else would sit there and decide if it's needed. And it was more than just one department that did that. So you would go to your department head, that department head would go to the next department that would sit there and go through all that mess and be like, okay, yes, no worry, no. Which also puts up barriers if you want something nefarious. Which is why you see Rumsfeld with the word salad so eloquently put, because he was forced to develop this ability. Whereas today, they're not forced to develop it. They don't have to hide even from each other. But that is all I want to talk about on Donald Rumsfeld. I think this was probably the most important part as far as a societal learning. If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to learn more about analysing body language, there is a video course available on Mandy's website for Gold subscribers.